Marcus Richardson had built his construction empire from nothing. Starting with a single bulldozer and a dream 25 years ago, he now owned Richardson Construction, one of the largest building companies in the state. His office on the 40th floor overlooked the city skyline, dotted with buildings that bore his company's signature. Yet despite all his success, Marcus felt something was missing from his life. The divorce 3 years earlier had left him wealthy, but lonely. His ex-wife had taken their teenage daughter Sarah to live across the country. His days were filled with meetings, contracts, and profit margins, but his evenings were empty. The penthouse apartment felt more like a museum than a home. On a rainy Tuesday morning in November, Marcus was reviewing blueprints for a new shopping center when his assistant knocked on the door. "Mr. Richardson, there's a situation at the Riverside Elementary construction site. The project manager needs you there immediately." Marcus grabbed his coat and headed to the site. Riverside Elementary was supposed to be demolished to make way for luxury condominiums. The old school had been abandoned for 5 years after budget cuts forced the district to consolidate. Most of the neighborhood families had moved away, leaving behind empty houses and broken dreams. When Marcus arrived at the construction site, he found his project manager, Tom Bradley, standing beside the chain-link fence looking frustrated. "What's the problem, Tom?" Marcus asked, stepping out of his black SUV. "We've got protesters, sir, but not the usual kind." Tom pointed toward the school's front entrance where a small group of people stood holding signs. "It's mostly kids from the surrounding blocks. They've been here since dawn." Marcus walked closer to get a better look. About 15 children ranging from 6 to 12 years old stood in the drizzling rain. Their handmade signs read, "Save our school, and this was our home." What struck Marcus most was how determined they looked despite being soaked to the bone. "Where are their parents?" Marcus asked. "That's the thing," Tom replied. "Most of these kids don't seem to have anyone looking out for them. The few adults who showed up left when it started raining harder. But the kids stayed." Marcus studied the group more carefully. Their clothes were worn but clean. Some shared umbrellas while others just pulled their hoods tighter. In the center of the group stood a girl who couldn't have been more than 8 years old. Her dark hair was plastered to her head from the rain, but her eyes blazed with determination. "Sir, should I call the police to move them along?" Tom asked. "We're already behind schedule, and every day we delay costs money." Marcus was about to agree when the little girl broke away from the group and walked directly toward the fence. She pressed her small face against the metal links and stared straight at him. Her expression wasn't angry or pleading. It was simply sad, as if she understood something important was about to be lost forever. "Mister," she called out, her voice barely audible over the rain. "Can I show you something inside the school? It's really important." Marcus felt something stir in his chest that he hadn't experienced in years. Maybe it was the way she looked at him with such hope. Or maybe it was how she reminded him of his own daughter at that age. "What's your name, sweetheart?" he called back. "Emma Rodriguez. I used to go to school here before it closed." "We all did." She gestured to the other children. "Please, mister, just 5 minutes. There's something you need to see." Tom stepped closer to Marcus. "Sir, I don't think this is a good idea. We have insurance concerns, and the building isn't safe. The city inspector said the structure is sound, but there could be hazards inside." Marcus looked at Emma's expectant face, then at the other children who had gathered behind her. Something about their quiet desperation reminded him of his own childhood. He had grown up in a neighborhood not unlike this one, where hope was often in short supply. "Tom, get me the keys to the building," Marcus said finally, "and call our insurance company. Make sure we're covered for a brief inspection." "But sir," "Just do it, Tom. 5 minutes won't hurt anyone." 20 minutes later, Marcus stood at the school's main entrance with Emma beside him. The other children waited outside under the covered walkway. Tom had reluctantly provided hard hats and insisted on accompanying them with a flashlight. The inside of Riverside Elementary was like stepping into a time capsule. Dust particles danced in the beams of sunlight streaming through dirty windows. Abandoned desks were scattered throughout classrooms, and faded artwork still hung on bulletin boards. The smell of old books and chalk dust lingered in the air. Emma led them down the main hallway, her small footsteps echoing in the silence. She moved with the confidence of someone who knew every corner of the building. "This was my kindergarten classroom," she said, pointing to a room filled with tiny chairs and tables. "And that's where I learned to read in first grade." As they walked deeper into the school, Emma shared memories of each room they passed. The library where she had discovered her love of fairy tales. The art room where she had painted her first picture of her family. The cafeteria where she had made her best friend over shared lunches. "Emma, where are you taking us?" Marcus asked, gently. "Almost there," she replied, turning down a corridor that led toward the back of the building. "It's in the basement. That's where the really important thing is." They descended a staircase to the lower level. The basement was darker and mustier than the upper floors. Tom's flashlight beam revealed storage rooms, a furnace, and what appeared to be an old maintenance workshop. Emma stopped in front of a plain wooden door at the end of the hallway. The paint was peeling, and there was no nameplate or sign to indicate what lay beyond. "In here," she said quietly. "This is what I wanted to show you." Marcus turned the doorknob and pushed the door open. Tom shined his flashlight inside, revealing a room that took Marcus completely by surprise. It wasn't a storage room or maintenance area. Instead, he found himself looking at what appeared to be a small apartment. "What is this place?" Marcus asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Emma stepped into the room. "This is where Mr. Peterson lived. He was our night janitor, but he was so much more than that. After his wife died and he couldn't afford rent anymore, the principal let him live here secretly. He took care of all of us kids whose parents worked late or couldn't pick us up. The room was simply furnished with a single bed, a small table, 2 chairs, and a hot plate. Books were stacked everywhere, and the walls were covered with children's drawings and thank you notes. Despite the dust and abandonment, the space felt warm and loved." Marcus walked slowly around the room, taking in the details. On the table was a framed photograph of an elderly man surrounded by dozens of smiling children. Many of the faces looked familiar from the group of protesters outside. "Where is Mr. Peterson now?" Marcus asked. Emma's eyes filled with tears. "He died last year. Heart attack. After the school closed, he didn't have anywhere to go. The kids in the neighborhood tried to help him, but..." Her voice trailed off. Marcus felt a lump forming in his throat. He had been so focused on profit margins and development schedules that he had never considered the human stories behind the buildings he demolished. This wasn't just an abandoned school. It had been a community, a home, a safe haven for children who needed it most. As he looked around Mr. Peterson's hidden apartment, Marcus realized Emma had brought him here for a reason. But he had no idea that what he was about to discover would change not only his perspective on this project, but his entire life. Marcus stood in the middle of Mr. Peterson's hidden apartment, feeling the weight of Emma's revelation. The room told a story of kindness and sacrifice that he had never expected to find in the basement of an abandoned school. But Emma wasn't finished showing him around. "Mr. Peterson kept all our letters and pictures," Emma said, walking over to a large cardboard box in the corner. "Even after the school closed, kids would come by and leave him notes. He saved every single one." She opened the box carefully as if it contained precious treasure. Inside were hundreds of handwritten letters, crayon drawings, and small gifts. Marcus picked up a few of the papers and began reading. The children's words were simple but powerful. "Thank you for helping me with my homework when Mama was working late. You make the best hot chocolate in the whole world. I love you, Mr. Peterson. You're like the grandpa I never had." One letter caught Marcus's attention. It was written in careful cursive by a child who was clearly trying their best to make each letter perfect. "Dear Mr. Peterson, my mom says we might have to move because she lost her job. I don't want to leave you in the school. You're the best friend I ever had. Love, Miguel." Miguel wrote that right before his family had to move to another state. Emma explained, noticing which letter Marcus was reading. His mom couldn't find work after the factory closed. Mr. Peterson cried when Miguel gave him that letter. Marcus felt something shifting inside his chest. For years, he had viewed his construction projects as numbers on spreadsheets and profit calculations. Buildings were structures to be demolished or erected based on market demand and financial projections. He had never considered the human stories that existed within those walls. "Emma, how did you know Mr. Peterson lived down here?" Marcus asked. "Lots of us knew," she replied matter-of-factly. "Our parents worked late or sometimes didn't come home until really late at night. Mr. Peterson would let us stay after school and do our homework in the library. When we got hungry, he'd make us sandwiches in his little kitchen here." Tom, who had been listening quietly, shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, we really should be getting back. The demolition crew will be arriving tomorrow and we need to finalize the safety preparations." But Marcus wasn't ready to leave. Something about this hidden room in Emma's story had captured his attention completely. "Tell me more about Mr. Peterson," he said to Emma. "What else did he do for you kids?" Emma's eyes lit up. "Oh, so many things. When it snowed really bad and our parents couldn't pick us up, he would let us sleep in the nurse's office with blankets from his room. He taught us how to cook simple meals and how to do laundry. Some of the older kids even learned how to fix bikes and stuff in his workshop." She walked over to another corner of the room where Marcus noticed a small bookshelf. "He read to us every night. Even after the school officially closed, he would meet us here sometimes and we'd have story time. He said reading was the most important gift anyone could give us." Marcus examined the bookshelf more closely. The books were well worn, with cracked spines and dog-eared pages. They ranged from simple picture books to more advanced chapter books. Many had notes written in the margins in what Marcus assumed was Mr. Peterson's handwriting. "How long had Mr. Peterson been living here?" Marcus asked. "About 3 years, Emma replied. "Ever since his wife got really sick and they had to spend all their money on doctor bills. After she died, he couldn't afford to keep their apartment anymore. Principal Martinez let him stay here because he worked so hard and cared so much about all of us." Tom checked his watch impatiently. "Mr. Richardson, I hate to interrupt, but we really do need to discuss the demolition timeline." Marcus held up a hand to quiet Tom. He was beginning to understand why Emma had been so determined to bring him down here. This wasn't just about saving a building. It was about preserving the memory of someone who had made a real difference in these children's lives. "Emma, what happened to all of Mr. Peterson's things when he died?" Marcus asked. "The city people came and threw most of it away," Emma said sadly. "We tried to save what we could, but they said it was all trash. They didn't understand that every single thing in here was important to someone." Marcus walked over to the small kitchen area and opened a cabinet. Inside were mismatched plates and cups, obviously collected over time from various sources. On one shelf sat a coffee mug with "World's Best Grandpa" painted on the side in childish letters. "Maria Santos made that for him in art class," Emma said, noticing Marcus examining the mug. "Her real grandpa lived in Mexico and she couldn't see him very often. Mr. Peterson told her he would be honored to be her American grandpa." The more Marcus learned about Mr. Peterson, the more impressed he became. Here was a man who had lost everything: his wife, his home, his financial security, yet had continued to give everything he had left to help others. He had turned a basement room in an abandoned school into a sanctuary for children who needed care and attention. "Sir," Tom said more urgently, "the demolition permits expire next week. If we don't start tomorrow, we'll have to reapply with the city, and that could delay the entire project by months." Marcus turned to face his project manager. For the first time since arriving at the school, he remembered why he was there. Richardson Construction had a contract to demolish Riverside Elementary and begin construction on luxury condominiums. Dozens of workers were scheduled to arrive tomorrow morning. Investors were expecting ground to be broken on schedule. But as he looked around Mr. Peterson's hidden apartment, Marcus realized he was facing a decision that went far beyond construction, schedules and profit margins. The room represented something that couldn't be measured in dollars or square footage. It represented human kindness, community, and the kind of caring that was becoming increasingly rare in the world. "Emma," Marcus said quietly, "why did you bring me down here?" What did you want me to see? Emma walked over to the wall where dozens of children's drawings were taped up. She pointed to one particular picture that showed a simple house with stick figures of adults and children standing in front of it. At the bottom, someone had written, "Home is where people care about you." Mr. Peterson used to say that home isn't a building, Emma explained. He said home is where people care about you and where you feel safe. This school was home for a lot of us. Not just the building, but what happened inside it. She turned to face Marcus directly. I know you have to tear down the school, the grown-ups already decided that. But I wanted you to know what this place really was before you knock it down. I wanted you to know about Mr. Peterson and how he made everything better for kids like us. Marcus felt tears stinging his eyes. In his rush to build bigger and more profitable projects, he had forgotten about the smaller, more important things that made communities strong. He had forgotten about people like Mr. Peterson who worked quietly behind the scenes to make other people's lives better. What do you want me to do, Emma? Marcus asked. Emma looked around the room one more time as if memorizing every detail. I don't know, she admitted. I just thought if you saw this place and knew about Mr. Peterson, maybe you'd understand why it's hard for us to watch it get torn down. Marcus nodded slowly. He was beginning to understand much more than Emma probably realized. But he was also beginning to realize that understanding the problem and knowing how to solve it were two very different things. As they prepared to leave Mr. Peterson's apartment, Marcus noticed something that made him stop cold. There, partially hidden behind a stack of books on the small table, was what appeared to be a hand-drawn map. The paper was yellowed with age and covered with careful pencil markings. Emma, Marcus said, picking up the map. What is this? Emma looked at the paper in Marcus's hands and smiled for the first time since they'd entered the room. Oh, that's Mr. Peterson's treasure map. He was always talking about the treasure hidden in the walls of the school. We thought he was just telling us stories to make us feel better about the building being so old and run down. Marcus studied the map more carefully. It showed a detailed layout of the school's basement, with various rooms marked, and what appeared to be measurements and notations written in the margins. One section of the map showed a wall in the basement with an X marked beside it, and the words, "Remember the children," written in faded ink. Tom leaned over Marcus's shoulder to look at the map. Probably just something the old man drew to entertain. The kids, Tom said dismissively. You know how janitors are, always talking about finding hidden things in old buildings. But Marcus wasn't so sure. The map was too detailed and precise to be just a children's story. Mr. Peterson had drawn it with the care and attention of someone who was documenting something real and important. Emma, Marcus said, did Mr. Peterson ever show you what this treasure was? Emma shook her head. He always said the treasure was something that could only be found by someone who really understood what the school meant to the kids who went here. He said someday the right person would find it and know exactly what to do with it. Marcus folded the map carefully and put it in his jacket pocket. He had no idea if there was actually anything hidden in the school's walls, but something told him that Mr. Peterson's treasure map was more than just an old man's fantasy. As they climbed the stairs back to the main floor of the school, Marcus's mind was racing. In less than 24 hours, his demolition crew would arrive to begin tearing down Riverside Elementary. But now he couldn't stop thinking about Mr. Peterson's map and Emma's faith that someone would eventually understand the true treasure hidden within these walls. What Marcus didn't know was that following Emma's clue and discovering Mr. Peterson's secret apartment was only the beginning. The real treasure was still waiting to be found, and when he finally uncovered it, everything about his life and his priorities would change forever. That evening, Marcus sat in his empty penthouse apartment staring at Mr. Peterson's hand-drawn map. The city lights twinkled beyond his floor-to-ceiling windows, but his mind was focused entirely on the mysterious markings and notations covering the yellowed paper. He had sent Tom home hours ago with instructions to delay the demolition crew until further notice. Tom had protested vigorously, reminding Marcus about contracts, deadlines, and the financial implications of postponing the project. But Marcus had made up his mind. He needed to understand what Mr. Peterson's map was trying to tell him. The map showed incredible detail for something drawn by hand. Every room in the school's basement was accurately depicted. complete with measurements that Marcus suspected were precise to the inch. But it was the section showing a wall marked with an X that captured his attention. The words, "Remember the children," were written in faded ink beside it, along with what appeared to be specific measurements and instructions. Marcus spread the map out on his dining room table and examined it under a bright lamp. Near the bottom right corner, he noticed something he had missed earlier. In very small handwriting, Mr. Peterson had written a date, December 15th, 1987. Below that was a single word, hope. Unable to concentrate on anything else, Marcus grabbed his car keys and headed back to Riverside Elementary. The rain had stopped, but the air was cold and damp. The construction site was deserted except for security lighting that cast eerie shadows across the empty schoolyard. Using his master key, Marcus let himself into the building and made his way down to the basement. Armed with a powerful flashlight and measuring tape, he began comparing the map to the actual layout of the lower level. The map was remarkably accurate. Every room, every hallway, every door was exactly where Mr. Peterson had drawn it. Marcus followed the markings on the map until he reached the wall that was marked with an X. It was located in a storage room that appeared to have been unused for years. The wall looked ordinary enough, cinder block construction painted institutional, green, probably sometime in the 1960s. Marcus ran his hands along the surface, tapping gently to see if he could detect any hollow spaces behind the blocks. Near the bottom of the wall, about 3 feet from the floor, Marcus heard a different sound when he tapped. Instead of the solid thunk of mortar and cinder block, there was a subtle, hollow echo. His heart began beating faster as he realized Mr. Peterson's map might be leading him to something real. Marcus returned to his car and retrieved a small crowbar from his emergency toolkit. Back in the basement, he carefully began chipping away at the mortar around one of the cinder blocks where the sound had been different. The mortar was old and crumbled easily under pressure. After 20 minutes of careful work, Marcus was able to remove the loose cinder block. Behind it, he found a metal box wrapped in several layers of plastic bags. The box was about the size of a shoebox and felt surprisingly heavy in his hands. With trembling fingers, Marcus unwrapped the plastic and opened the metal box. Inside, he found a collection of items that initially seemed random and unconnected. There were dozens of photographs, handwritten letters, newspaper clippings, and what appeared to be legal documents. Marcus spread the contents of the box on the floor and began examining them by flashlight. The photographs showed children of various ages, many of whom he recognized from the group of protesters outside the school. But these pictures were older, clearly taken over a span of many years. One photograph caught his attention immediately. It showed a much younger Mr. Peterson standing with a group of children in front of Riverside Elementary. Everyone was smiling, and someone had written Riverside Family 1995 on the back of the photo. As Marcus looked through more photographs, he began to understand that Mr. Peterson had been documenting something much larger than just his own story. The pictures showed children receiving awards, graduating from high school, attending college orientations, getting married, holding babies. These were success stories, children who had attended Riverside Elementary and gone on to build successful lives. The letters in the box were even more revealing. They were thank you notes from former students, but not just from their elementary school years. These letters had been written years and even decades later, from adults who wanted to thank Mr. Peterson for the impact he had made on their lives. Marcus picked up one letter that was typed on official letterhead. It was from Dr. Sophia Martinez, addressed to "My dear Mr. Peterson," and dated just 6 months earlier. "I wanted you to know that I just finished my residency and will be starting work as a pediatrician next month. I still remember how you helped me with my reading when I was struggling in 2nd grade. You told me that education was the key to changing my life, and you were right. I never forgot your kindness or your belief in me. Thank you for showing me that someone cared about my future." Another letter was from a young man named Carlos Rodriguez, who wrote about how Mr. Peterson had helped him stay out of trouble during his teenage years by giving him responsibilities around the school and teaching him basic carpentry skills. Carlos was now a successful contractor with his own business. As Marcus continued reading, He realized that Mr. Peterson had been quietly tracking the success of hundreds of former Riverside Elementary students. The letters, photographs, and newspaper clippings told story after story of children who had faced difficult circumstances, but had succeeded in life with Mr. Peterson's support and encouragement. But it was the legal documents in the box that truly shocked Marcus. At the bottom of the collection, he found a will and several official papers that made his hands shake as he read them. According to the documents, Mr. Peterson had been secretly using his modest savings to create college scholarships for students from low-income families. Over the course of 30 years, he had quietly funded the education of 47 young people from the neighborhood around Riverside Elementary. The will, dated just 3 months before Mr. Peterson's death, left his remaining funds, nearly $30,000, to continue the scholarship program. But because Mr. Peterson had no official heirs and the school had been closed, the money was tied up in legal proceedings with the city. Marcus sat back on his heels, overwhelmed by what he had discovered. Mr. Peterson hadn't just been a kind janitor who helped children with their homework. He had been running a one-man mission to change lives through education and opportunity. The newspaper clippings in the box told even more of the story. Marcus found articles about local students who had received academic awards, started businesses, joined the military, or made positive contributions to their communities. In the margins of many clippings, Mr. Peterson had written notes like Riverside Elementary, Class of '98, or helped with math tutoring, 3rd grade. Near the bottom of the box, Marcus found a leather-bound notebook that appeared to be Mr. Peterson's personal journal. The entries dated back decades and documented his interactions with hundreds of children over the years. One entry from 1995 read, "Maria Santos is struggling with reading, but she's so bright and eager to learn. Started working with her after school. Her mother works 2 jobs and can't help with homework. Maria has incredible potential if someone just gives her the support she needs." A later entry from 2003 noted, "Maria Santos graduated valedictorian from high school today, full scholarship to State University. She stopped by to thank me and said she wants to become a teacher. So proud of that little girl who used to struggle with reading." As Marcus flipped through the journal, he began to understand the full scope of what Mr. Peterson had accomplished. This wasn't just about one man helping a few children. It was about a systematic effort to identify kids who needed support, and then providing whatever assistance was necessary to help them succeed. The journal entries showed that Mr. Peterson had provided tutoring, meals, clothing, school supplies, and emotional support to literally hundreds of children over the years. He had attended their graduations, celebrated their achievements, and continued to stay in touch with them long after they left elementary school. But what impressed Marcus most was that Mr. Peterson had never sought recognition for his efforts. There were no newspaper articles about his scholarship program, no awards or honors, no public acknowledgement of his contributions. He had simply worked quietly behind the scenes, changing lives one child at a time. The final item in the box was a sealed envelope with "For whoever finds this" written on the outside in Mr. Peterson's careful handwriting. Marcus opened it with trembling hands and found a letter addressed to the person who cares enough to follow the map. The letter read, "If you are reading this, then you have taken the time to understand what Riverside Elementary really meant to the children who attended here. The treasure you have found is not gold or money. It is the proof that education and caring can change lives. These children were told by society that they didn't matter, but they proved everyone wrong. They are doctors, teachers, business owners, parents, and community leaders. They are the real treasure of Riverside Elementary." The letter continued, "I hope whoever finds this will understand that buildings are just brick and mortar. The real value is in the lives that are touched and changed within those walls. If you have the power to help these children and families, please don't let their stories end with the demolition of this school. They deserve someone who believes in their potential as much as I always did." Marcus sat in the basement of the abandoned school, surrounded by evidence of one man's incredible legacy. Mr. Peterson had spent his entire life savings and every spare moment helping children succeed against the odds. Even when he lost everything and had to live in a basement room, He had continued to put the needs of others before his own. As Marcus carefully packed the contents of the box back together, he realized that Emma had been right to bring him down to the basement. She had somehow understood that he needed to see this evidence of what education and caring could accomplish. But Marcus also realized that finding Mr. Peterson's treasure was only the beginning. The real question now was what he was going to do with this knowledge. The demolition equipment was still scheduled to arrive in the morning, and dozens of people were counting on him to move forward with the condominium project. Yet as Marcus climbed the stairs from the basement, carrying Mr. Peterson's treasure with him, he knew that his perspective on everything had changed completely. The question was no longer whether he could afford to save Riverside Elementary. The question was whether he could afford not to. Marcus spent the entire night in his office, poring over the contents of Mr. Peterson's box and making phone calls. By sunrise, he had contacted his lawyers, his accountants, and several city officials. What he was considering would be the most expensive and complicated decision of his business career, but he was determined to find a way forward. At 8 o'clock in the morning, Tom Bradley arrived at the construction site to find the demolition crew standing around looking confused. Marcus had called them at 6 a.m. and told them to hold off until further notice. Tom was furious. "Marcus, what the hell is going on?" Tom demanded when he found his boss standing in the school's main hallway. "Do you have any idea how much money we're losing by delaying this project? The investors are going to be asking serious questions." Marcus handed Tom a copy of one of the letters from Mr. Peterson's box. "Read this, Tom. Then tell me if you still think tearing down this building is the right thing to do." Tom reluctantly took the letter and began reading. It was from a young woman named Jennifer Wright who had graduated from Riverside Elementary in 1989. She wrote about how Mr. Peterson had helped her family when her father lost his job and they were facing eviction. Mr. Peterson had quietly arranged for her to receive free lunches, school supplies, and after-school tutoring. 20 years later, Jennifer was a successful social worker helping other families in crisis. "This is a nice story, Marcus, but we're not in the charity business," Tom said after finishing the letter. "We're builders. We have contracts and obligations." "What if we could be both?" Marcus asked. "What if we could fulfill our contracts and still honor what this place means to the community?" Before Tom could respond, Emma Rodriguez appeared in the hallway. She was with several other children from the protest group, but this time they weren't carrying signs. Instead, they looked nervous and hopeful. "Mr. Richardson," Emma said politely, "we heard the big trucks didn't start working today. Does that mean you're not going to tear down our school?" Marcus knelt down to Emma's eye level. "I'm trying to find a way to save your school, Emma, but it's complicated. There are a lot of people involved, and I need to make sure I can do what's right for everyone." Emma's face lit up with the first genuine smile Marcus had seen from her. "You found Mr. Peterson's treasure, didn't you? I knew if someone good looked for it, they would understand." Marcus nodded. "I found it, Emma. And you were right. It changed everything. But now I need your help with something." Over the next 2 hours, Marcus sat with Emma and the other children in Mr. Peterson's old classroom. He explained that he wanted to save the school, but he needed to know more about what the building meant to the current families in the neighborhood. "How many kids around here don't have a safe place to go after school?" Marcus asked. "Lots," replied a boy named Miguel who looked to be about 10 years old. "My mom works until 7, and my big sister has to take care of me and my baby brother. Sometimes we just have to stay home by ourselves." "What about help with homework?" Marcus continued. "Nobody helps us," said a girl named Ashley. "My mom didn't finish high school, so she can't help me with the hard stuff. I just do my best and hope it's right." As Marcus listened to the children talk, he began to understand that the problems Mr. Peterson had been addressing 30 years ago were still present in the neighborhood today. Working parents, latchkey kids, families struggling to make ends meet. All of the same challenges that had motivated Mr. Peterson to dedicate his life to helping children. That afternoon, Marcus drove to the offices of the mayor, the school superintendent, and the head of the city's housing authority. At each stop, he presented the same proposal. Instead of building luxury condominiums on the site of Riverside Elementary, he wanted to create something entirely different. Marcus's plan was ambitious, and expensive. He proposed renovating Riverside Elementary into a state-of-the-art community center that would serve families throughout the neighborhood. The building would include after-school programs, tutoring services, job training for adults, child care services, and recreational facilities. But here's the most important part, Marcus explained to the mayor. I want to fully fund Mr. Peterson's scholarship program. Every child who participates in the community center programs and maintains good grades will be guaranteed a college scholarship. The mayor looked skeptical. Mr. Richardson, that's a generous offer, but the numbers don't add up. You could make 10 times more money building condominiums. Why would you want to take such a financial loss? Marcus thought about Emma's hopeful face and Mr. Peterson's hidden treasure. Because some things are more valuable than money, Mayor Johnson. This neighborhood has been forgotten for too long. These kids deserve the same opportunities that wealthy families can provide for their children. The meetings continued throughout the week. Marcus discovered that changing his construction project from condominiums to a community center would require new permits, zoning variances, and approval from multiple city departments. The process would be expensive and time-consuming, with no guarantee of success. His business partners were even less supportive. During a heated board meeting, Marcus faced intense criticism from his investors. Marcus, you're talking about throwing away millions of dollars on a feel-good project, said Robert Chen, Richardson Construction's largest investor. Our responsibility is to our shareholders, not to some sentimental story about a dead janitor. What? About our responsibility to the community where we do business? Marcus shot back. What about our responsibility to leave the world better than we found it? The argument continued for hours. Several board members threatened to pull their investments if Marcus proceeded with his community center plan. Others worried about the legal implications of abandoning the condominium project after contracts had already been signed. Marcus understood their concerns, but he couldn't stop thinking about the contents of Mr. Peterson's box. Every photograph, every letter, every success story represented a life that had been changed through education and caring. How could he justify destroying that legacy for the sake of profit margins? Late that evening, Marcus received an unexpected phone call. The caller identified herself as Dr. Sophia Martinez, the pediatrician who had written one of the letters in Mr. Peterson's collection. Mr. Richardson, I heard through the neighborhood grapevine that you're considering saving Riverside Elementary, Dr. Martinez said. I wanted to call and tell you what that building means to people like me. Dr. Martinez explained that she had grown up in a family where education was not prioritized. Her parents were hardworking people, but they had never finished high school themselves and didn't understand how to help their daughter succeed academically. Mr. Peterson changed everything for me, Dr. Martinez continued. He didn't just help me with my homework, he showed me that someone believed I was smart enough to become whatever I wanted to be. Without his support and encouragement, I never would have had the confidence to pursue medical school. Marcus listened as Dr. Martinez described how Mr. Peterson had provided tutoring, emotional support, and practical assistance to dozens of children over the years. She had stayed in touch with many of her former classmates, and nearly all of them credited Mr. Peterson with helping them achieve success in their adult lives. Mr. Richardson, I make a good living now as a doctor, Dr. Martinez said, but I would gladly give up every penny I've earned to ensure that other children have the same opportunities that Mr. Peterson gave me. If you're serious about saving that school, I want to help however I can. Over the next several days, Marcus received similar calls from other former Riverside Elementary students. Carlos Rodriguez, the contractor, offered to donate labor and materials for renovation work. Jennifer Wright, the social worker, volunteered to help design after-school programs. A teacher named Michael Chen offered to coordinate tutoring services. Word of Marcus's community center proposal began spreading throughout the neighborhood and beyond. Local newspapers picked up the story, and Marcus found himself fielding calls from reporters, community activists, and other business leaders. The attention wasn't entirely positive. Some critics accused Marcus of engaging in a publicity stunt to improve his company's image. Others questioned whether he had the expertise to run community programs effectively, but the support from the neighborhood families was overwhelming. Parents who had never spoken up before began attending city council meetings to advocate for the community center. Children wrote letters to the mayor explaining why saving their old school was important to them. Emma Rodriguez became something of a spokesperson for the effort. Local television stations interviewed her about her memories of Mr. Peterson and her hopes for the community center. Her articulate responses and genuine passion impressed viewers throughout the city. Mr. Peterson always said that every child deserves someone who believes in them, Emma told one reporter. Mr. Richardson believed in us enough to listen to our story. Now we want to make sure other kids have that same chance. The media attention brought Marcus's proposal to the attention of state officials and education advocates. Within 2 weeks, he received a call from the governor's office expressing interest in using the Riverside Elementary project as a model for community development in other underserved areas. But Marcus's biggest breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Margaret Foster, an elderly woman who lived near the school, called to request a meeting. When Marcus arrived at her modest home, she led him to a living room filled with photographs and memorabilia. "Mr. Richardson, I've lived in this neighborhood for 60 years, Mrs. Foster began. I watched Riverside Elementary open in 1962, and I watched it close 5 years ago. But what most people don't know is that I was the school's first principal." Mrs. Foster explained that she had started her career at Riverside Elementary as a young teacher in 1963. She had worked her way up to principal and had served in that role for 25 years before retiring. She had hired Mr. Peterson as a janitor in 1985 and had watched him become much more than a maintenance worker. "James Peterson was the most dedicated educator I ever worked with," Mrs. Foster said. "He never had formal training, but he understood children better than most teachers with advanced degrees. I gave him permission to live in that basement room because I knew he would use the opportunity to help even more kids." Mrs. Foster walked over to a filing cabinet and pulled out a thick folder. "I've been keeping track of every student who graduated from Riverside Elementary during my time as principal," she said. "I can document the success stories that James was collecting. If you're serious about honoring his legacy, I have 25 years of data to prove the impact this school had on children's lives." The folder contained graduation rates, college enrollment statistics, and follow-up surveys with former students. The data was remarkable. Despite serving a low-income neighborhood where many children faced significant challenges at home, Riverside Elementary had consistently produced students who succeeded academically and professionally. "The secret was caring," Mrs. Foster explained. "We made sure every child knew that at least one adult in their life believed in their potential. James Peterson embodied that philosophy better than anyone I ever knew." As Marcus reviewed Mrs. Foster's documentation, he realized he now had the evidence he needed to convince skeptics that the community center project was more than just a sentimental gesture. The data proved that investing in education and support services for at-risk children produced measurable results. Armed with this information, Marcus scheduled another meeting with the mayor and city council. This time, he came prepared with statistics, testimonials, and a detailed business plan showing how the community center could become self-sustaining within 5 years. "Mayor Johnson, this isn't charity," Marcus explained. "This is an investment in the future of our city. Every child who succeeds because of these programs will become a productive citizen who contributes to our tax base and our economy." The mayor studied the proposal carefully. "Mr. Richardson, your plan is impressive, but the city doesn't have the budget to support operating costs for a facility this large." "You won't need to," Marcus replied. "I'm prepared to fund the operating costs for the first 5 years. By that time, the program should be generating enough revenue through grants, donations, and fee-for-service contracts to sustain themselves." What Marcus didn't tell the mayor was that funding the community center would require him to invest nearly every penny of his personal savings. He would have to sell his penthouse apartment, liquidate his stock portfolio, and take out loans against his company's assets. But as Marcus thought about Mr. Peterson's sacrifice and Emma's faith in him, he knew he had to find a way to make the project work. The treasure hidden in the school's walls had shown him what was possible when someone cared enough to invest in children's futures. The city council vote was scheduled for the following week. Marcus had done everything he could to prepare, but he knew the decision would ultimately come down to whether the community could convince elected officials that Riverside Elementary was worth saving. What Marcus didn't anticipate was how powerfully the children themselves would advocate for their cause, or how their testimony would influence not just the city council's decision, but his own understanding of what it truly meant to build something that would last. The night before the city council vote, Marcus couldn't sleep. He had invested everything, his reputation, his savings, his company's future, in a plan that might fail because of politics and bureaucracy. At 3 a.m, he found himself driving back to Riverside Elementary one more time. The school looked different in the darkness. Instead of an abandoned building scheduled for demolition, Marcus now saw it as Mr. Peterson had seen it, as a place where miracles could happen if someone cared enough to make them possible. He used his key to enter the building and made his way down to the basement room where Mr. Peterson had lived. The space was exactly as they had left it weeks earlier, still filled with evidence of one man's extraordinary dedication to helping children succeed. Marcus sat on Mr. Peterson's simple bed and pulled out the letter that had started everything. "For whoever finds this," Mr. Peterson had written, "I hope you will understand that buildings are just brick and mortar. The real value is in the lives that are touched and changed within those walls." As Marcus reread the letter, he realized that Mr. Peterson had faced many of the same challenges he was facing now. Limited resources, skeptical administrators, and a society that didn't always value investing in children from disadvantaged backgrounds. Yet Mr. Peterson had persevered for 30 years, changing lives one child at a time. The next morning, Marcus arrived at City Hall to find the council chambers packed with people. The Riverside Elementary proposal had generated more public interest than any issue in recent memory. Families filled every seat and dozens more stood along the walls. Emma Rodriguez sat in the front row with her mother, wearing her best dress and clutching a folder of papers. Other children from the neighborhood were scattered throughout the audience, some with their parents and others with older siblings or neighbors who had brought them to witness the proceedings. Marcus recognized many faces from the letters and photographs in Mr. Peterson's collection. Dr. Sofia Martinez sat with her young daughter. Carlos Rodriguez had brought several of his employees. Jennifer Wright was there with Margaret Foster, the former principal, and dozens of other former Riverside Elementary students who had driven in from across the state to support the project. Mayor Johnson called the meeting to order and explained the proposal. Mr. Richardson is requesting permission to convert the former Riverside Elementary building into a community center, rather than proceeding with the approved condominium development. This would require zoning variances and significant changes to existing contracts. The public comment period began with Marcus presenting his case. He explained the financial projections, the educational programs, and the scholarship fund that would be established in Mr. Peterson's memory. He showed the council members photographs and letters documenting the success of former Riverside Elementary students. "This is not just about saving an old building," Marcus concluded. "This is about investing in the future of our community. The children in this room today deserve the same opportunities that Mr. Peterson provided for previous generations." When Marcus finished his presentation, Councilmember David Williams raised a concern that Marcus had been dreading. "Mr. Richardson, your proposal sounds admirable, but the city has already invested significant time and resources in approving the condominium project. Changing course now could expose us to legal challenges from other developers." Before Marcus could respond, Emma Rodriguez stood up in the front row. "Excuse me," she said in a clear, strong voice. "Can I say something?" Mayor Johnson looked surprised but nodded. "Young lady, this is a public comment period. You have 3 minutes. Emma walked to the podium with her folder of papers. She had to stand on her tiptoes to reach the microphone, but her voice carried clearly throughout the chamber. "My name is Emma Rodriguez, and I'm 8 years old. I go to Lincoln Elementary now, but I used to go to Riverside Elementary before it closed. I wanted to tell you about Mr. Peterson and why this building is so important." Emma opened her folder and pulled out a photograph. "This is a picture of Mr. Peterson with my class from when I was in kindergarten. He's the one who taught me how to read when I was having trouble. He stayed after school every day to help me with my letters and sounds. She turned the photograph so the council members could see it. Mr. Peterson didn't just help me, he helped everyone. When kids were hungry, he made them sandwiches. When they needed help with homework, he stayed late to tutor them. When their parents couldn't pick them up, he made sure they were safe until someone came. Emma's voice grew stronger as she continued. Some grown-ups think kids like us don't matter because we're poor or because our parents work a lot and can't help us with school stuff. But Mr. Peterson knew we mattered. He proved that we could be anything we wanted to be if someone just believed in us. She pulled out another paper from her folder. I wrote a report about what I want to be when I grow. I want to be a doctor like Dr. Martinez, who used to go to our school too. Mr. Peterson told me that dreams only come true if you work hard and if someone helps you along the way. Emma looked directly at each council member as she spoke. Mr. Richardson found Mr. Peterson's treasure and learned about all the kids who succeeded because someone cared about them. Now he wants to help kids like me have the same chance. Please don't let him down. Please don't let us down. When Emma finished speaking, the chamber erupted in applause. Several council members wiped tears from their eyes, and Marcus felt his throat tighten with emotion. This 8-year-old girl had articulated the heart of his proposal better than all of his charts and statistics. The public comment period continued for 2 more hours. Former Riverside Elementary students shared stories about how Mr. Peterson had influenced their lives. Parents talked about the challenges of finding quality after-school care and academic support for their children. Community leaders spoke about the economic benefits of investing in education and youth development. But it was the children's voices that had the most impact. One by one, kids from the neighborhood stood up to explain why they needed a safe place to go after school, help with their homework, and adults who believed in their potential. Miguel Santos, age 10, talked about taking care of his baby brother while his mother worked 2 jobs. Sometimes I can't do my homework because I have to watch the baby, he said. If we had a place like Mr. Richardson wants to build, someone could help me with both things. Ashley Chen, age 9, explained that she wanted to be an engineer but struggled with math. My parents try to help, but they don't speak English very well, she said. I need someone who can explain things in a way I understand. After all the public comments, the council members asked Marcus several technical questions about funding, management, and long-term sustainability. Marcus answered each question thoroughly, drawing on the research and planning he had done over the past month. Council member Sarah Thompson asked about community support. Mr. Richardson, how do we know this project will have lasting community involvement? What happens if interest fades over time? Marcus gestured toward the packed chamber. Councilwoman Thompson, look around this room. These families didn't come here tonight because I asked them to. They came because they understand what's at stake. This level of community engagement doesn't happen for projects that don't matter. Dr. Martinez stood up to address the council. If I may add something, I'd like to offer concrete evidence of community commitment. I've been in contact with 15 former Riverside Elementary students who are now working professionals. We've formed a volunteer organization committed to supporting this community center. We have teachers, social workers, business owners, and healthcare workers ready to donate time and expertise to make this project successful. Carlos Rodriguez stood next. I own a construction company, and I'm prepared to donate labor and materials, worth $50,000 for the renovation work. This isn't just about money. It's about investing in our neighborhood's future. As the evening progressed, more community members offered specific commitments. A local restaurant owner volunteered to provide free meals for after-school programs. A retired teacher offered to coordinate tutoring services. A group of high school students promised to serve as mentors for younger children. Marcus watched in amazement as the community rallied around the project with an enthusiasm and commitment he had never expected. These weren't wealthy philanthropists making charitable donations. These were working families and struggling businesses offering whatever they could to support children in their neighborhood. The council deliberated for 45 minutes before returning to announce their decision. Mayor Johnson served as the spokesperson. The council has voted unanimously to approve Mr. Richardson's proposal for the Riverside Elementary Community Center, he announced. We are impressed by the level of community support and the comprehensive nature of the plan. However, we are adding one condition. Marcus felt his heart skip a beat. After everything they had accomplished, was there going to be a last-minute obstacle? The condition is that the city wants to partner with Mr. Richardson to make this project a model for community development throughout our region, Mayor Johnson continued. We're prepared to provide matching funds and to help replicate this approach in other underserved neighborhoods. The chamber erupted in cheers and applause. Emma Rodriguez jumped up and down in her seat, and her mother hugged her tightly. Marcus felt overwhelmed by a mixture of relief, joy, and gratitude. As people began filing out of the chamber, Emma ran up to Marcus and threw her arms around his waist. "You did it, Mr. Richardson. You saved our school." Marcus knelt down to Emma's level and smiled. "We did it together, Emma. This was only possible because you had the courage to show me what really mattered." Emma grinned. "Mr. Peterson would be so happy. He always said that when good people work together, they can make miracles happen." As Marcus looked around the chamber at the celebrating families and volunteers, he realized that Emma was absolutely right. They had indeed made a miracle happen. But as he would soon discover, the real miracle was just beginning. The community center project would transform not only the neighborhood, but Marcus himself in ways he never could have imagined. 2 years later, Marcus stood in the main hallway of the Riverside Elementary Community Center, watching children stream through the doors after school. The building bore little resemblance to the abandoned structure he had first visited with Emma Rodriguez. The walls were painted in bright, welcoming colors, and every room buzzed with activity and learning. The transformation had been remarkable, but it hadn't been easy. The renovation process had taken 18 months and had cost nearly double the original estimate. Marcus had been forced to sell his penthouse apartment and take out additional loans to cover the unexpected expenses. Several of his business partners had withdrawn their investments, and Richardson Construction had struggled financially during the transition period. But as Marcus watched 8-year-old Miguel Santos helping his baby brother with a puzzle in the child care center while completing his own homework nearby, he knew every sacrifice had been worth it. The community center served over 200 children each day and had become the heart of the neighborhood in ways Marcus had never anticipated. Emma Rodriguez, now 10 years old, ran up to him carrying a certificate. "Mr. Richardson, look, I got the highest score in my class on the math test. Mrs. Chen says if I keep working hard I could get a scholarship to college just like Mr. Peterson's other kids did." Marcus examined the certificate proudly. Emma had blossomed into an exceptional student under the guidance of the community center's tutoring program. More importantly, she had become a leader among the younger children, always willing to help newcomers feel welcome and supported. "I'm so proud of you, Emma," Marcus said. "Mr. Peterson would be proud too." Emma smiled and then grew serious. "Mr. Richardson, can I show you something? It's in Mr. Peterson's room." Marcus followed Emma down to the basement where Mr. Peterson's former living space had been converted into a memorial library. The room displayed photographs and letters from his collection, along with updates from current community center participants. It had become a place where children could come to read quietly or to remember the man who had started it all. Emma led Marcus to a new addition to the memorial, a large bulletin board covered with recent photographs and achievements. "Look at all the good things that happened because you listened to me that day," Emma said. The bulletin board told an amazing story of success and transformation. Marcus saw pictures of high school graduations, college acceptance letters, job promotions, and family celebrations. But what moved him most were the thank you notes from parents expressing gratitude for the support their children received at the community center. One letter particularly caught his attention. It was from Maria Santos, Miguel's mother, written in careful English. "Thank you for giving my children a safe place to learn and grow. Miguel is reading at grade level for the first time, and his baby brother is learning new words every day in the child care program. You have given our family hope for a better future." Dr. Sofia Martinez appeared in the doorway of the memorial room. She now served as the volunteer medical director for the community center. providing free health screenings and basic medical care for families in the neighborhood. Marcus, I wanted to give you an update on our scholarship program, Dr. Martinez said. We now have 43 students enrolled in college with full funding from the Mr. Peterson Memorial Scholarship Fund. The success rate is incredible. 96% of our scholarship recipients are maintaining grade point averages of 3.0 or higher. The scholarship program had grown far beyond Marcus's original vision. Word of the community center's success had spread throughout the region, attracting donations from corporations, foundations, and individuals who wanted to support the work. The original $30,000 from Mr. Peterson's estate had grown into an endowment worth over $2 million. But the financial success was only part of the story. The community center had become a model for similar projects in 12 other cities. Marcus found himself traveling frequently to speak at conferences and to consult with other communities interested in replicating the Riverside Elementary approach. Dr. Martinez, I have some news I wanted to share with you and Emma, Marcus said. The governor has announced that she wants to make our community center model the basis for a statewide initiative. She's proposing legislation that would provide funding for similar centers in every underserved community in the state. Emma's eyes widened. You mean there could be places like this for kids everywhere? That's exactly what it means, Marcus replied. And Emma, I want you to know that none of this would have happened if you hadn't had the courage to ask me to follow you into that basement 2 years ago. As they talked, Carlos Rodriguez arrived with a crew of high school students who were participating in the community center's job training program. Carlos had been hired as the center's facilities manager and had developed a comprehensive program that taught young people construction skills while they earned their high school diplomas. Marcus, the kids finished installing the new playground equipment today, Carlos reported. The dedication ceremony is set for Saturday, and it looks like we'll have over 500 people attending. The playground had been funded entirely through community donations and volunteer labor. Local businesses had contributed materials, and dozens of families had spent weekends working together to build a safe, modern play area for the neighborhood children. Marcus walked outside to admire the new playground. The contrast with the abandoned lot that had existed 2 years earlier was striking. Children were already testing the equipment under the watchful eyes of community center staff members. As the sun began to set, Marcus found himself thinking about how dramatically his life had changed since that rainy day when Emma had first asked him to follow her into the school. Richardson Construction was smaller now, but more focused on projects that served community needs rather than simply maximizing profits. Marcus had discovered a sense of purpose and fulfillment that all his previous business success had never provided. Margaret Foster, the former principal, joined Marcus on a bench overlooking the playground. Now 82 years old, she volunteered at the community center 3 days a week, helping with reading programs and sharing stories about the school's history. Marcus, I want you to know something, Mrs. Foster said. In all my years in education, I've never seen anything quite like what you've accomplished here. You've proven that it's possible to honor the past while building something even better for the future. Marcus smiled. Mrs. Foster, I have to be honest. When I first came here, I was just a businessman looking to complete a profitable project. I had no idea what I would discover or how it would change my perspective on everything. That's what makes this story so remarkable, Mrs. Foster replied. You were open to learning something new, even when it meant giving up something you thought you wanted. Not many people have that kind of courage. As they sat watching children play on the new equipment, Emma appeared with a group of her friends. They were carrying a large banner they had painted in art class. The banner read, "Thank you, Mr. Richardson and Mr. Peterson, for believing in us." We wanted to surprise you, Emma said, holding up the banner with obvious pride. All the kids helped make this. We're going to hang it in the main hallway so everyone who comes here will know how grateful we are. Marcus felt tears welling up in his eyes as he looked at the banner and the smiling faces of the children who had created it. These kids understood something that many adults never learned, that gratitude and hard work were the foundation of success, and that everyone deserved someone who believed in their potential. Dr. Martinez joined the group with an envelope in her hand. Marcus, I have one more surprise for you. This just arrived from the State Education Department. Marcus opened the envelope and found an official certificate recognizing the Riverside Elementary Community Center as the state model for community-based education. The certificate was signed by the governor and the state superintendent of schools.